It's 1984. Picture this. You're driving down a long, lonely stretch of American Interstate. It's late, the kind of late where the darkness outside your car feels like a solid wall. The only light comes from your headlights, cutting through the pouring rain and the occasional flicker of a neon sign at a desolate rest stop. A sign buzzes. Vacancy. Under its eerie glow, a figure in a tan trench coat stands motionless, a silhouette against the stormy night. A moment later, a matte black 1982 sedan glides past, silent as a ghost in the thick fog, and disappears back into the darkness. This was the era of the open road, a time before cell phones and GPS, a time when getting lost was a real possibility, and help was often miles away. It was a time of freedom, but also a time of vulnerability. And it was in this vast, anonymous network of highways that a new kind of predator emerged, a phantom who stalked the asphalt arteries of the nation. They called him the Ghost. The Ghost wasn't your typical movie monster. He didn't have a signature look or a dramatic calling card, at least not at first. His weapon was his anonymity. He drove a car that was utterly forgettably nondescript sedan, probably a Ford or a Chevy, painted a dull matte black that swallowed the light. It was the kind of car you'd see a dozen times on a cross-country trip and never notice once. It blended perfectly into the river of midnight traffic, flowing down I-80, just another pair of taillights fading into the distance. His victims were travelers, salesmen, pushing to make the next town by morning. Families on vacation, their cars packed with coolers and suitcases. College students heading home for the holidays. Anyone who found themselves alone on the road after dark was potential prey. The disappearances started as whispers, scattered reports from different states that didn't seem connected. A car found, abandoned on the shoulder, engine cold, doors unlocked, a wallet and keys still on the seat, but the driver gone. State troopers would file a report, but what could they do? The person was an adult. Maybe they just walked away, started a new life. It happened. But then another car would be found miles away, a week later. Same story. Inside, you'd find traces of a life abruptly paused. A child's stuffed animal left on the back seat. A half-eaten bag of chips on the passenger floor. A suitcase in the trunk, filled with clothes that would never be worn again. These scenes weren't gruesome. They were chillingly empty. The silence in those cars was louder than any scream. It was the silence of a person who had simply been erased from the world. For months, these were treated as isolated incidents. Tragic, but separate. A string of bad luck and strange coincidences across the American heartland. The sheer scale of the interstate system made connecting the dots nearly impossible. A disappearance in Nebraska might not be linked to one in Iowa or Illinois for weeks, if ever. The Ghost was operating in the seams of jurisdiction. A phantom flitting between state lines, always one step ahead of the law. He was methodical, patient, and utterly invisible. He owned the night, and the highways were his hunting grounds. But patterns, no matter how faint, eventually emerge. And it took a fresh pair of eyes to see the one the Ghost was leaving behind. Enter a rookie detective, fresh out of the academy, stuck on desk duty, and tasked with sorting through cold cases, the kind of stuff no one else wanted. He wasn't looking for a serial killer. He was just trying to clear a backlog of paperwork. He was reviewing a series of what were initially logged as single-vehicle accidents. Cars that had run off the road, no apparent cause, no other vehicles involved. The drivers were missing, presumed to have wandered off in a daze after the crash. But the detective noticed something odd. In the crime scene photos from several of these accidents, spanning hundreds of miles, there was a tiny, insignificant detail that everyone else had missed. Tucked into the wreckage, sometimes under a seat, sometimes lying on the rain-soaked asphalt a few feet away, was a vintage postcard. It was always the same design, a faded, idealized image of a classic American landmark, like the Golden Gate Bridge or Mount Rushmore, and on the corner of each one, a small, dark stain. The lab confirmed his worst fear. It was blood. This was the break. This was the killer's signature, a subtle, arrogant token left at the scene. Suddenly, these weren't disconnected accidents anymore. They were breadcrumbs. The detective took his findings to his superiors, who were skeptical at first, but the evidence was undeniable. The cases were reopened, re-examined, and the true, horrifying picture began to take shape. This wasn't just a few missing persons. This was the work of a single, highly mobile, and prolific killer. The investigation exploded. Local police departments, realizing they were in over their heads, called in the big guns. The FBI and the FBI brought with them a new, almost futuristic tool they were pioneering. It was called computer profiling. In an era of filing cabinets and rotary phones, the idea of using a machine to hunt a man was like science fiction. Agents began feeding every scrap of data into their massive room-sized computers. Locations, times of day, victim demographics, weather conditions, and of course, the postcards. The machine churned and word processing information faster than any team of humans ever could. It began to draw lines on a map, connecting the dots of the ghost's journey. A terrifying geography of murder began to emerge, a sprawling web that covered 3 states. The profile that began to form was that of a man who was likely a long-haul trucker or a traveling salesman, someone with a legitimate reason to be on the road at all hours, someone who knew the interstate system like the back of his hand, someone who could blend in because he belonged there. The race against time was on. Every night that passed was another chance for the ghost to strike. News of a highway killer began to leak to the press, and a quiet panic started to ripple through the communities along the I-80 corridor. People stopped driving at night. Truck stops, once bustling with activity 24/7, became quiet and tense after sunset. Every driver became a little more suspicious of the car in their rearview mirror. The open road, once a symbol of freedom, now felt like a trap. For the investigators, the pressure was immense. They were fighting an enemy with no face, no name, and no clear motive. They were chasing a shadow. The computer had given them a pattern, but the killer was smart. As the police presence on the highways increased, the pattern shifted. He became more erratic, more unpredictable, as if he knew he was being hunted. He was toying with them. The climax of the investigation was pure, nail-biting tension. Acting on a tip and a new data point from the computer, a task force set up a surveillance operation at a remote truck stop in western Illinois, a known waypoint in the ghost's hunting pattern. The scene was straight out of a neo-noir film. Rain lashed down, reflecting the harsh, high-contrast glare of the fluorescent lights. Deep shadows clung to everything, making it impossible to see clearly. Every set of approaching headlights could be him. Every trucker stepping out of his cab for a cup of coffee was a potential suspect. Hours ticked by. The detectives sat in their unmarked cars, steam fogging the windows, their radios crackling with hushed, tense whispers. Then they saw it. A matte black sedan, just as the profile predicted, pulled slowly into the lot. It parked in the darkest corner, away from the main building, its engine idling. The detectives held their breath. Was this him? Was this the end of the chase? The driver's side door opened, and a figure began to step out into the rain. The silhouette was just a dark shape against the storm, a specter stepping out of the very night that had concealed him for so long. The trap was set. The hunters were ready, and in that final, heart-pounding moment, anything could happen. Thanks for watching. If you were captivated by this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the shadows of history. Let us know in the comments what you think happened next.